Today, we're going to talk about prices. I get a lot of people who ask me whether or not they should put them on their website and how detailed should they be. And we're going to dive into this in today's episode. Welcome to the Up in My Business podcast with me, Lex Lancaster, where you'll get an inside look at all things tech, business, and my life as a physical therapist turned digital operations expert. You'll hear all about my lessons as a business owner, the ins and outs of tech for your business, and more. From SEO, websites, and email marketing to automations, launches, and copywriting, I've got you. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. So before we dive in, I figure I'm just going to let this podcast kind of unfold into what it's going to be. I'm going to go through a quick little life update, I guess, before we jump into all the goods. I feel like I don't really share a lot of details into my life, and with life being a part of this podcast, I feel like it should be a little bit more than just logistics. So this Thursday, which will have been last Thursday, is my birthday. So I am going to be the big 3-0. And by the time this episode launches, my birthday will have already passed. But I have some pretty exciting plans for my birthday. At least they're exciting to me. I am taking Thursday and Friday off from work. I think I'm not positive about Friday, but I'm definitely taking Thursday off. My family is coming to visit this weekend, so obviously have to get things ready for them. But on Thursday, on my actual birthday, I did schedule a volleyball lesson. I want to swing, get some reps in before I go to California in a couple weeks. I'm going to California to photograph Anna Hartman on Instagram, the Move It Rev, and I'm going to photograph her event. So she has a mentorship, and she invites the mentorship folks into San Diego for a live course, and I'm going there to photograph the event. I also went last year, and it was incredible. And I get to meet so many cool people. So I'm so thankful Anna invited me back this year. So I'm going there. And then on a Sunday morning, I'm catching a plane from San Diego to Los Angeles. And I'm going to be going straight from the airport to the beach. Also did this last year as well. And then we'll be spending Sunday playing volleyball, obviously pending weather and whatnot. From my understanding, California is going through a area or a spell, if you will, of shitty weather. So hopefully that's gone. But I'll be going to play volleyball with Shantae and her beach volleyball friends. So I've done this a couple times. Each time I go to California, we play volleyball. But I wanted to have a volleyball lesson, and it was kind of like my little birthday present to myself, I guess. But I wanted to get some reps in for hitting because I just haven't really done a ton of it since I graduated from college. And I played minimal volleyball in college, so I think it was 2 semesters worth, but anyway, and then high school. So I haven't gotten a ton of practice in and being able to just focus on one skill. So I requested for the lesson to just focus on hitting. So I'm assuming, when this episode launches, RIP to my shoulder. I have a feeling I'm going to be super sore all weekend just because if you play volleyball or have ever played volleyball, if you do a lot of one thing in one practice that you're not doing a lot of, it's kind of like preseason, you get really sore. So I have a feeling my shoulder will be really sore. It's also the shoulder that I messed up years and years ago playing softball. So it's always got a tendency to get sore, but I'm really excited because it's one thing, I don't get to practice sports. Once you graduate from, organized play, it's really hard to find, especially volleyball where I'm at. So I am super excited to play volleyball. And by the time this launches, like I said, I will have already done it. So I'll recap that in the next episode for sure and talk more about that. But I'm really excited. And my family's coming to visit. I don't really know. I have no idea if something else is going on, but as of right now, it's just my parents and I think their dogs are coming to visit. My family is not from where I'm currently living. So I'm in New England and they're in upstate New York. So they're coming to visit. My mom hasn't seen our new house yet, so I'm pretty excited to show her that. But celebrating my 30th birthday, at this time, I was talking to one of my friends, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. And I was just saying to her, at this time of my life, I don't feel any different than I did like 10 years ago, which I never thought would be the case, but it really, really feels that way to me. I just don't feel any different, especially like physical wise. I'm really grateful for that, but I thought there would be this big transition between like being a college student and now, and there really hasn't been a huge transition. I feel like most things have stayed the same as far as, demand wise goes. Obviously the demands change from being a student to being a professional to owning a business and whatnot, but I just don't physically feel different. I don't mentally feel different. And I keep asking myself, like, when am I going to feel different? So just a weird thing that I don't know I guess it's normal because I'm feeling it, but I don't know if it's just a common thing for people to feel, but 30 just doesn't feel different. I feel like a lot of people are like, I don't want to turn 30, but I just don't even, at this point, I don't care. Age has never really been a thing that I worry about. It's going to happen regardless. So there's no point in me worrying about it. So yeah, years are going to pass regardless if you worry about them or not. So you might as well embrace it. But I'm just excited. I'm excited to turn 30, mostly because when I say I'm 29, I still feel like it sounds super young, but when I say 30, I feel like it all of a sudden feels much older. It's kind of like when you're in PT school and you're working on clinical and you're still a student, but then you graduate and like literally one day you're a student, the next day you're working in the clinic. Well, I guess it's not really the next day pending the test, but the next day you're just able to say, I'm a PT. So it's just that flip that's really interesting to me. So yeah, I'm really excited. And I feel like when I was in California this past fall, I met a few people who had said to me, and this is in regards to turning 30, I had met a few people who had said to me that they didn't know how old I was. So I don't think most people know how old I am. I look super young. I've always looked super young. So I always assume people think I'm young, but they had no idea how old I was. And when they found out, what they said to me that I'm working on receiving. So I'm, The Go-Giver is a book that Shantae recommends to the Instagram intensive folks. So she has an Instagram business coaching course, and she recommends that you read The Go-Giver before. And I had never read it. It's been 4 years of hearing the recommendation, and I just read it. So I am working on receiving compliments, but I'm really bad at it currently. So I just don't receive compliments and gifts well. So when I was in California, a few people had said to me, you're only 29 and you're doing a lot of big things, and you own multiple businesses and you're doing all this stuff, and I'm like, you're in a really good spot and you're not even 30 yet. And I had never really sat with that because, like I said, I don't really spend a lot of time, letting things like that marinate in my brain. Like, I don't really think about how old I am. I see a goal and I go for the goal. So when they said that to me, it was a couple different people in a couple different scenarios. And when they said that to me, it was just like, it felt really good. And to me, it also it put something in the front of my face that I wasn't thinking about before. So I am super, super grateful for all of the things that I've been able to do before I'm 30 and achieve before I'm 30. And I don't celebrate it enough. Like, I know I don't celebrate it enough. And it took a couple people saying, you should celebrate that to me. And like I said, I'm still working through a lot of that, like being able to celebrate those achievements. So I'm just super excited. I'm super grateful for what I've gotten to do in my first 29 years of life, and really just looking forward to the next however many I am lucky enough to have. And yeah, here's to 30. Here's to 30 years old. And like I said, this episode, I'm already going to be 30. So I've been 30 for a couple days. I hope I feel good. I hope I still say that I don't feel any different. Because that will be a nightmare. I actually had an intrusive thought. So I had an intrusive thought last night when I was working out. I've been doing if you're familiar with like movement prep, if you will, for, when you're in PT, if you're having knee pain and you're going back to a sport, typically you work on like cutting, pivoting, jumping, etc., sport specific stuff. And so last night I had an intrusive thought and I was like, shit, I should be jumping or something in my training because I'm just going to go jump. And it's been fine so far when I go to California, knock on all the wood. I won't knock on the wood because that'll be annoying for your ears. Maybe you heard that. So anyway, I have not had any problems with like my ACL or anything like that, but I had an intrusive thought last night and I was like, shit, I'm going to go play on a hard gym floor rather than beach sand, which is different. I'm going to go play on a hard gym floor on Thursday and I'm going to be swinging and jumping and landing and all of the things. And yes, I do lift, but no, I don't do agility training and jumping and all that stuff. So let's hope that my ACL is okay, because that was my intrusive thought. I was like, I'm going to tear my ACL. Maybe I should start doing some jumping. So I actually did like decel jumps and, just random tuck jumps last night, just like get to the stimulus of jumping, thinking that one time will prepare me for this Thursday, but I digress. So anyway, volleyball, let's hope I don't tear my ACL. I really hope I had an amazing weekend with my family. I bet it's going to be the best, and I'm just excited. So thanks for listening to all of that stuff. And I promise we're going to get into pricing now, and if you should list your prices on your website. So if you have been around my Instagram long enough, I have posted about this a couple times. So like I said, with the podcast, I get to break it down even more, and that makes me super excited. And I will share our experience as a physical therapy clinic as well. So when it comes to pricing and your website, people ask me the question, they just say, should I put my prices on my website? And the first question that I always like to say is, what services do you offer? Because it really depends. And for any physical therapist, realistically, any medical professional listening to this, it depends is the most frustrating answer. But as you get through your schooling and you learn more and more and more, you recognize that it depends is really the best answer you could probably get from someone, because that means there is no concrete answer. There is not one way of doing things. It's not a black and white situation. It always depends on a lot of things. So it's the same thing for your prices on your website. I will say that my preference, if you have a concrete service, so coaching, if you sell a product, so if you're selling like a t-shirt, if you have a service that people don't typically use insurance for, so something like a massage, right? People are oftentimes billing insurance for that because most insurance companies don't cover massage. So massage, any type of like recovery stuff. So I'm thinking about people who are in stretch therapy, maybe even my friend owns a mobile and now brick and mortar IV therapy. Typically those things, people are well aware that they're not covered by insurance, or they just don't give a shit about their insurance because they don't use it. So it's one of those things where if you have that type of service, if you have a group yoga class, list your prices. There's no harm in listing your prices for those things for a couple different reasons. One, it's not going to change whether or not someone comes to see you because they're not able to use their insurance. So for services that insurance doesn't matter for, listing your prices, it doesn't matter. Just list your price. People might say, well, my price might push people away. Yes, absolutely. So if your coaching services are $197 an hour, and that's quote unquote too expensive for one person, that's going to be quote unquote too inexpensive or inexpensive for a different person. So yes, you will inherently price people out of those prices. But what's worse, getting someone on a discovery call and then having them tell you they have $2 to spend, or having someone see your prices and say, cool, I can afford that, I'm going to book a discovery call? For my business, and this is where I'm going to piggyback into my business, so my digital online business, I have my prices right on my website. There is no secret. My hourly rate is there. My essential packages are on there. My website template prices are on there. My do it in a day price is on there. Does it say starting at X amount of dollars? Yes, it does. So I have some services that say packages start at whatever. But that bottom line, people know the bottom line. It's going to be $800. It's going to be $1,000. They know that. So when you have a service like that, list your prices. There's no reason to not list them. Having people go looking for them can be aggravating. And also, you don't want to waste your time. By not listing your price and having a discovery call as an option, you might be wasting your time on that discovery call. And I don't truly think that talking to someone is ever a waste of time. It's just if that person is looking at the price and they have to make a decision based on price alone, and they don't know what your prices are, you have to then make it a sales call. And that's not fun all the time. So it's really nice to get on a discovery call with people at this point. And I'm like, it's $400. My template is $400. Go to my website. You can see it on there. I'm not hiding my price. So when I'm on a discovery call, it makes it really easy to let people know exactly what everything is going to cost. So that's the big thing, is price transparency is wonderful. Being able to have your prices on your website will put up a barrier for some people to access your services, but we don't get to decide what they do with that information. Someone who can't afford you today might be able to afford you next year, might be able to afford you in a couple months. So putting your prices up is just going to make it easier for them to understand where they're at and can they afford you in this moment? Can they invest the money that they need to invest in this moment in that service? And when insurance is not a factor, it's really a no-brainer. Put your prices on your website because people are looking at the price at that point. And if you've already established a relationship with someone, it doesn't matter anyway. They're going to pay the price because they know who you are, they know how you work, etc. So mostly I will recommend that if you have a service where insurance doesn't matter and you have a concrete priced service like a coaching call or a group class or a drop-in rate or a product, there is no harm in putting your prices on your website. Now, here's the other side. So when it comes to services that can be paid for via insurance, it gets a little bit more gray, it gets a little bit more difficult, and it truly is an experiment. So the reason why I say I'm basing it off of insurance and can a service be paid for typically with insurance is because the system that we're in, and it has gotten drastically different over the last 2 to 3 years. But the system that we're used to is medical stuff is paid for by insurance. And that's been the story for a really long time. And yes, there's been out-of-network stuff. There's been private pay stuff for God knows how long. But prior to, 3 to 5 years ago, it was not very mainstream. And now at this point, people are so used to hearing cash-based, out-of-network, private pay. They know what that is. And that is actually a really good thing for the people who are out-of-network, cash pay, etc. But the reason why I'm basing it on insurance is because that normal, quote-unquote, thought that people have about, can my insurance pay for it? But why wouldn't I use my insurance for it? That narrative is hard to break through on a static website. So what I mean by that is if you have your prices on your site for your session, right? So your 1 hour session or your packages or whatever, some people will look at that and say, ooh, what's that cost? That cost is $190. Okay, interesting. Those people may book because they assume their insurance is going to cover it, or they may not book because they're thinking, that's a lot of money. So a lot of people will say, but Lex, I have an FAQ on my website that says I'm out of network. People don't read your whole website. I'll be honest with you. They don't. They don't read your whole site. You can't assume they're going to. And you run the risk of someone booking if they see your price and assuming that insurance covers it. That just is what it is. So with all of this in mind, if we have a static price on our website of $197 per session, people will look at that and they may turn away even if they can afford it, just because they don't understand it. So we've had people who know the price of a session and they initially think, wow, that's a pretty penny. That's pretty expensive. But then they understand that they only come once a week. They only come 6 to 8 times. They spend the entire time with a PT and they don't get passed off to an aide. And they're like, oh, that's actually not that expensive. It's one-on-one. Then they learn that they get to have a super bill that they can submit to their insurance, and they might get out-of-network benefits, and some of it might be covered, So people oftentimes will see the price online and not book, but it's not because they can't afford it. It's simply because they don't understand why it is that price. So we did an experiment with our clinic just to put this in action. So when we first opened up our PT clinic, we didn't have our prices on our website because we were in a couple different ecosystems where people were kind of at a toss-up of like, do we put them on our site? Do we not? Price transparency is really cool. I'm not saying it's not cool. It's great. I love it. I love when people know what your prices are. We have a pricing sheet we give to people in the clinic. I love when people know what the prices are. We tell them on a discovery call. But when we first opened up our clinic, we didn't put our prices on our site. We had discovery calls. We would talk about the insurance question. Obviously, it's difficult in the beginning to talk about your worth. You're still getting reps in. You help a lot of people. You get more reps in. You get further along in your business. You can talk about it better. And then obviously the money component becomes a part of the conversation. It's just normal. So like I said, we had our prices off of our website. They weren't there. So when people called, we talked about our rates. I decided to do a lovely experiment where I put the prices on the website, and it was not hard to find them. It was right underneath our services tab. And what I saw, and obviously there is no causative relationship here. I can't prove this. It's not a scientific experiment because I'm dealing with humans here. But when it comes to looking at the stats for us, when we had our prices on our website, less people called. Less people booked a discovery call, less people put in an inquiry form. For me, I learned in that moment that yes, less people reached out, which is a problem twofold. One, of course, we're not getting new patients, but two, people may be loving the message on the website and just not reaching out because they don't understand or they think they can't afford it. And for me, that tells me that access to care is being hindered. Now, I understand being out of network, being a cash-based practice, you are already hindering access by not taking insurance, but also you're providing better care. So if you're familiar with the model, you know that already. You get it. But when we took our prices off again, the calls, the bookings, the emails came back. And it doesn't make me feel some type of way to take our prices off and be like, surprise, this is the rate. Because if you do read our FAQ, you can see that we're out of network. We have an out of network benefit sheet that talks about like our rate versus a regular PT clinic. Like if you dig far enough, you're going to find something. Now, if you have an intake form, if you decide to book a random eval, you get sent an intake form, the price is there too. So it's not like we're hiding it and being like, surprise, we're an out-of-network practice. Like we talk about that on the website, that we are out of network, we work one-on-one, we get more time with you, yada, yada. So when we put our price or took our prices back off and we had more calls, that opened up a door for more people to get care. Because people that wouldn't have reached out, and I know this because people have said it, we actually have 2 people that have actually said this to us. People were reaching out again because they were curious. They liked the message on the site. They wanted to know more. They wanted to know more about out-of-network care. What does that mean for me? What does that mean for my condition? Like, are we a good fit? Because what does it cost? Like, how does it work? Do I come 3 times a week and pay $200 each time? That sounds crazy, right? So it opened up a door for a conversation to let people know, hey, this is what it costs. This is what you're going to get out of it. This is the value that we provide. This is the experience you're going to have. And at the end of the day, this is about how much you will pay working with us. Then you have to think about the other side of the equation. When we are working as an out-of-network practice, even if you're an in-network practice, most people nowadays have a high deductible plan, so it doesn't matter anyway. Because regardless of what happens, unless they met their deductible, they're going to be paying out of pocket for whatever costs they incur as they're seeing an in-network provider until they meet their deductible. And I don't know about you, but every high deductible plan that I've ever seen, the deductible is thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's typically higher than 4, 5, 6. So that opens up the other side of the equation for a conversation too, because we are doing our patients a disservice or potential patients a disservice if we're not telling them what the cost could be. The good news is that there is the No Surprises Act, the good faith estimate. There is now the good faith estimate. So they're like PT places are required, or every healthcare practice, typically, I think it's everything because it's Medicare based, is required to tell people, hey, it's going to cost X amount of dollars. But when you compare apples to apples, I guess you can call it apples to apples, cost wise, out of network practice tends to be cheaper. And you can't have that conversation on a website because once again, you're listening to a website designer. I'm telling you that people don't read your whole website. Out of 10 people that come to your site, most people will be on your website for about 7 seconds and then they'll leave. So I don't rely on the text on my website to tell people the story that we want to tell them on a phone call. And by a story, I mean the truth. So without having that conversation, you're then dismissing people who may not they don't understand. And that's not fair to them. And it's certainly not fair to, I don't want to say not fair to us because it's their healthcare. We want them to get help, but we should be able to be given the opportunity to tell them, hey, this is the whole picture. This is what it could look like for your care. This is what you might see in other clinics versus the out-of-network practice. So this is why I say to people, regardless of what you do, and this is not me telling you to put your prices on your site or take your prices off your site. I truly believe that it's an experiment. We saw that we had decreased calls, decreased inquiries in total by taking our prices and putting them back on our site. And for me and for us, what that felt like was a obviously decreased opportunity for business, but more so, it was just, it increased the barrier to care. And it just frustrated us to no end because we were like, the people who feel like they can't afford it are going to go pay whatever amount of copay and then whatever amount of deductible at a different practice, and they may or may not get results. And this is not me also saying, I don't want to get canceled here, but it's not me saying that every insurance-based practice is terrible. That's not what I'm saying either. What I'm saying is that if you have a specific service, like we have weightlifting, like people who lift weights, people who are Olympic weightlifters come and see Kyle for assessment. He has a very specific treatment for that specific population. If that specific person goes to an in-network practice who doesn't work with Olympic weightlifters, that Olympic weightlifter stands a chance to be told, hey, don't lift Olympic weights, don't lift Olympically. How would you even say that? Don't continue with Olympic lifting anymore. And that's not really fair. Right? So we don't want that to happen to our patients. And regardless, getting on a discovery call with someone, even if they do or don't come to your practice, how cool is it that we get to tell them, the reality behind our healthcare system and the reality behind like, hey, look, here's your options, right? Because we never, and I don't know anyone else's approach, but on our calls for Renegade, it's never like, we're the best fit for you, for every single person. That's not what it is at all. The value in a discovery call is referring out when necessary and saying, hey, we're not the best for you. Check out this practice instead. And we happily refer to a couple different insurance-based clinics when it's going to work out for the patient better. So all in all, and in summary, If you have a business where people are typically using insurance for the care, which realistically I've seen it with chiropractic, dental, PT, some people do use massage or their insurance for massage, but that's very rare. So mostly those three I've seen it with. It's more or less about the fact that you should open the opportunity, or you could open the opportunity for a phone call by saying, hey, look, we're out of network on the website. Book a discovery call to see if we're a good fit. And not necessarily mentioning any costs. If you decide to list your costs, it's also a good idea to say, jump on a discovery call to talk about these costs with us. So if you want to be super transparent on your website and say what the cost is and break it all down and hope that everyone reads all the information, I would still make it super easy to book a consult call with you to say, let's talk more about the cost. Book a call. Just so you don't automatically just kind of omit all the people who don't understand what that cost means. If you have a concrete service, a product like a t-shirt, coaching calls, if you have a yoga class, if you have a drop-in fee, if you have a massage therapy practice who does like deep tissue massage versus athletic massage and it's a different cost, I would say post those costs on your website. There's no harm, no foul in that because people are not used to using their insurance for that cost. So that's kind of my thoughts on the whole, should you put them on your website? If you are still questioning it, if you should put them on your website, do an experiment. The experiment should last between 3 to 4 months. So that's the thing. It should last between 3 to 4 months. You should make sure that there's enough time to really measure whether or not people call or they don't call. And just make sure that you're making a note of when you start, when you stop, and how many calls you have in that period. If you decide to take them off, obviously make sure you're doing yourself the service of saying, hey, look, here's all your options, right, on your discovery calls, and then giving that quote unquote good faith estimate, upfront cost analysis to everyone who calls, and really diving into what the cost really means. Because if there's one lesson that I have learned as a business owner over the course of the last 4 years as my online business and 3 years, almost 3 years as a private practice owner, it's that most folks don't understand what the cost gets them. They don't understand the value yet. You have to obviously illustrate the value to them and demonstrate that in the way that treatment goes. But on those calls, it's really important to tell them, this is the full picture. This is what you get. This is the difference. This is the value we provide. This is how you will feel when we work with you. And understand that, yes, you will price people out, but we don't get to decide what they do with that information. Some people will say, okay, I'm going to go use my insurance for a little bit, see how it works out. And then that person may come see you later on. Another person may say, you know what? My knee pain's okay for right now. In the next 3 months, though, they might save up money to come see you because it's that important to them. And you are the person that they want to see. They want that experiment. They want that experience. They just can't afford you right this second. And some people you may not be a good fit for, and you have to refer out, obviously, or they may meet you on a call and say, I don't really think I want to work with you, or your price is too high for me. I simply cannot afford it. And for those people, that's okay. We can't undervalue our service, right, to fit everyone. It's impossible because I believe I speak for most people when I say this. If we could do the jobs that we do for free, we would, because the profession that we're in is a giving profession. It's a caring profession. If I could do all my coaching calls, if I could build PTs' websites, if I could do all this stuff for free and still obviously have a house and food and money to buy Moose toys, I would do it. We all would do this for free, but that's not the way life works. So we can't undervalue our service simply because we know that everyone cannot afford it. And even if someone can't afford it today, There's no saying that they won't be able to afford it in the future. So with that being said, after you listen to this episode, I would just make sure that you check out your website. What does your website say currently? Do you have your prices on there? Do you describe your process? How easy is it to find your prices if you want them to be found? If you don't have them on your website, it should be extremely easy to book a discovery call. Please don't make that hard for people. You should have a link above the fold immediately when you come to your website, and any call to action you have on your site should be to book a discovery call. Or if you really just want them to go on and have a free-for-all online booking experience, you can do that too. So both options is always great. For what it's worth, from the website designer here, please have, if you have a contact page or a discovery call booking page, you should have book a discovery call as one option, right? So maybe that's like the button in the top header. Maybe it's the above the fold button on the home page. It might be links throughout your services page, but that should be an option. And then on your contact page itself, in addition to scheduling that discovery call, you should also have your phone number listed there. You should have, if you can text or call it, that's important to know too. You should have your email there, and you should have a form. Have a form where they have to fill out first name, last name, phone number, email, and maybe a quick message or description of what's going on. And then we also like to know how they found us. How did you find out about us? And that would be a form. It just captures all of the different types of personalities. Some people won't want to book a discovery call by themselves. Some people will only want to fill out a form. Some people would truly prefer to just text you. So always have all of the options available for someone to contact you. So with all of that being said, I still hope I didn't tear my ACL on Thursday. I'm praying right now. I hope I did not tear my ACL on Thursday, and I hope that was just an intrusive thought and not a premonition. And I hope you have gotten a little bit of clarity on should you or should you not put your prices on your website. Thank you so much for being here. I'll catch you next time.